Now, there's been a great deal of concern about these changes. So I want to reiterate, there is a legitimate role for these financial instruments in our economy. They can help allay risk and spur investment. And there are a lot of companies that use these instruments to that legitimate end. They are managing exposure to fluctuating prices or currencies, fluctuating markets. For example, a business might hedge against rising oil prices by buying a financial product to secure stable fuel costs. So an airlines might have an interest in locking in a decent price. That's how markets are supposed to work. The problem is these markets operated in the shadows of our economy, invisible to regulators. Invisible to the public. So reckless practices were rampant. Risks accrued until they threatened our entire financial system. And that's why these reforms are designed to respect legitimate activities but prevent reckless risk-taking. That's why we want to ensure that financial products like standardized derivatives are traded out in the open. In the full view of businesses, investors, and those charged with oversight. And I was encouraged to see a Republican senator join with Democrats this week in moving forward on this issue. That's a good sign. That's a good sign. For without action, we'll continue to see what amounts to highly leveraged. Loosely monitored gambling in our financial system, putting taxpayers and the economy in jeopardy. And the only people who ought to fear the kind of oversight and transparency. That we're proposing are those whose conduct will fail this scrutiny. Third, This plan would enact the strongest consumer financial protections ever. And that's absolutely necessary because this financial crisis wasn't just the result of decisions. Made in the executive suites on Wall Street, it was also the result of decisions made around kitchen tables across America. By folks who took on mortgages and credit cards and auto loans. And while it's true that many Americans took on financial obligations that they knew or should have known they could not have afforded, millions of others were, frankly, duped. They were misled by deceptive terms and conditions, buried deep in the fine print. And while a few companies made out like bandits by exploiting their customers, our entire economy was made more vulnerable. Millions of people have now lost their homes. Tens of millions more have lost value in their homes. Just about every sector of our economy has felt the pain, whether you're paving driveways in Arizona, or selling houses in Ohio, or you're doing home repairs in California. Or you're using your home equity to start a small business in Florida. That's why we need to give consumers more protection and more power in our financial system. This is not about stifling competition, stifling innovation, it's just the opposite. With a dedicated agency setting ground rules and looking out for ordinary people in our financial system, we will empower consumers with clear and concise information when they're making financial decisions. So instead of competing to offer confusing products, companies will compete the old-fashioned way, by offering better products. And that will mean more choices for consumers, more opportunities for businesses. And more stability in our financial system. And unless your business model depends on bilking people, there is little to fear from these new rules. Number 4, the last key component of reform. These Wall Street reforms will give shareholders new power in the financial system. They will get what we call a say on pay. A voice with respect to the salaries and bonuses awarded to top executives. And the SEC will have the authority to give shareholders more say in corporate elections. So that investors and pension holders have a stronger role in determining who manages the company in which they place their savings. Now, Americans don't begrudge anybody for success when that success is earned. But when we read in the past, and sometimes in the present, about enormous executive bonuses at firms even as they're relying on assistance from taxpayers or they're taking huge risks that threaten the system as a whole or their company is doing badly, it offends our fundamental values. Not only that, some of the salaries and bonuses that we've seen creates perverse incentives to take reckless risks that contributed to the crisis. It's what helped lead to a relentless focus on a company's next quarter. To the detriment of its next year or its next decade. And it led to a situation in which folks with the most to lose stock and pension holders had the least to say in the process. And that has to change. Let me close by saying this. I have laid out a set of Wall Street reforms. These are reforms that would put an end to taxpayer bailouts. That would bring complex financial dealings out of the shadows. That would protect consumers, and that would give shareholders more power in the financial system. But let's face it, we also need reform in Washington. And the debate over these changes is a perfect example. I mean, we have seen battalions of financial industry lobbyists descending on Capitol Hill. Firms spending millions to influence the outcome of this debate. We've seen misleading arguments and attacks that are designed not to improve the bill but to weaken or to kill it. We've seen a bipartisan process buckle under the weight of these withering forces. Even as we've produced a proposal that by all accounts is a common sense, reasonable. Non-ideological approach to target the root problems that led to the turmoil in our financial sector and ultimately in our entire economy. So we've seen business as usual in Washington. But I believe we can and must put this kind of cynical politics aside. We've got to put an end to it. That's why I'm here today. That's why I'm here today. And to those of you who are in the financial sector, let me say this, we will not always see eye to eye. We will not always agree. But that doesn't mean that we've got to choose between two extremes. We do not have to choose between markets that are unfettered by even modest protections against crisis. Or markets that are stymied by onerous rules that suppress enterprise and innovation. That is a false choice. And we need no more proof than the crisis that we've just been through. You see, there has always been a tension between the desire to allow markets to function without interference and the absolute necessity of rules to prevent markets from falling out of kilter. But managing that tension, one that we've debated since the founding of this nation. Is what has allowed our country to keep up with the changing world. For in taking up this debate, in figuring out how to apply well-worn principles with each new age. We ensure that we don't tip too far one way or the other, that our democracy remains. As dynamic, and our economy remains as dynamic as it has in the past. So, yes. This debate can be contentious. It can be heated. But in the end it serves only to make our country stronger. It has allowed us to adapt and to thrive. And I read a report recently that I think fairly illustrates this point. It's from Time magazine. I'm going to quote. Through the great banking houses of Manhattan last week ran wild-eyed alarm. Big bankers stared at one another in anger and astonishment. A bill just passed would rivet upon their institutions what they considered a monstrous system, such a system. They felt, would not only rob them of their pride of profession but would reduce all U.S. banking to its lowest level. That appeared in Time magazine in June of 1933. The system that caused so much consternation. so much concern was the Federal Deposit Insurance Corporation. Also known as the FDIC, an institution that has successfully secured the deposits of generations of Americans. In the end, our system only works, our markets are only free when there are basic safeguards that prevent abuse. That check excesses, that ensure that it is more profitable to play by the rules than to game the system. And that is what the reforms we've been proposing are designed to achieve, no more, no less. And because that is how we will ensure that our economy works for consumers. That it works for investors, and that it works for financial institutions, in other words. That it works for all of us. That's why we're working so hard to get this stuff passed. This is the central lesson not only of this crisis but of our history. It's what I said when I spoke here 2 years ago. Because ultimately, there is no dividing line between Main Street and Wall Street. We will rise or we will fall together as one nation. And that is why I urge all of you to join me. I urge all of you to join me, to join those who are seeking to pass these common sense reforms. And for those of you in the financial industry, I urge you to join me not only because it is in the interest of your industry, but also because it's in the interest of your country. Thank you so much. God bless you, and God bless the United States of America. Thank you. Barack Obama. Nomination of Regina M. Benjamin for U.S. Surgeon General.